One of the things I love about music is its ability to create these actual cultural events that change everyone's perspective on everything going forward. It doesn't happen often, and it's like magic when it does. They're events that not only change the face of music going forward, but that had influence around the world. So it's 1982, and there is no bigger star on planet Earth than Michael Jackson. He's working with the acclaimed producer and his longtime friend Quincy Jones, and they have a goal in mind to create a perfect album, no filler, all hits. There had been a huge backlash against disco music in the last couple of years, and Michael's last album, Off the Wall, was a burgeoning example of disco pop, and a sign of what the genre would turn into once its frightful name was dropped, and everyone just went back to calling it dance music. For a couple of the tracks, they brought in the songwriter Rod Temperton, the author of two of Michael's earlier biggest hits, Rock With You and Off the Wall. Rod wanted to do something cinematic, because he knew Michael enjoyed the idea of old Hollywood films. Initially, he thought of writing something called Starlight, and the plan was to work on the lyrics off the title. But Quincy Jones thought it was a little meh, so he tried again a couple times and eventually came up with Thriller. Once the title was decided, he got the lyrics down in no time. He envisioned creating sounds like a horror film and a spoken word section at the end, but he wasn't sure how that would come together. Quincy mentioned the idea to his wife at the time, Peggy Lipton, and she thought of her friend, the great classic horror actor Vincent Price. So they call up Vincent, and on his way to the studio, Rod is scribbling down the spoken word part for him to record. Vincent was offered two options. He could either be paid a flat rate of $20,000 for the day's work, or he could have a portion of the proceeds from the record. He chose the $20,000. There were also wolf howls in the background, and the engineers set up tape recorders around one of their Great Danes areas outside and hoped that they would catch a howl. But they had no luck. Michael was like, forget it, I will do it myself. And it is him that you hear howling like a wolf on that song. The song was cut and added to Thriller, which was released in November 1982, and it was jam-packed with hit songs. Features some of the best musicians on the planet, and it was primed to be a massive, massive hit.
Thriller.
38.
38
million.
38 million. On it together?
Yes.
You wrote songs together?
Yes, I wrote one song. Michael wrote four. And we had various songs in the album.
Now, when you're putting together an album like that, are you ever surprised that a song that goes on the album becomes a hit, or are you ever surprised that it doesn't become a hit?
I'm surprised. I mean this sincerely. Everybody goes into a studio to make the biggest record in the world.
Sure.
And everybody's always surprised when it isn't the biggest record in the world. And
surprised when it's not. Yeah.
200 that haven't done that, you know.
The album reached #1 on the Billboard Top 200 album charts in the US and would hold that spot for almost an entire year, propped up by the groundbreaking music videos for Billie Jean and Beat It, which got extremely heavy rotation on MTV. Michael's iconic performance of the moonwalk dance on live television in the spring that year would have everybody putting on one glove, leather jackets, and big aviator sunglasses. Michael was kind of obsessed with charts positions, and whenever the album started to dip a little bit in sales, he insisted on releasing another single. This led to the release of 7 independent single releases off Thriller, which is an album of only 9 songs. So Thriller, the song which was never intended to be released, it was 7th in line to be chosen as a single out of 9. The record label thought of it as kind of a novelty song, because who in the world would be interested in listening to music about monsters? So in mid-1983, when Thriller started to fall off the top position on the charts, Michael all of a sudden wanted to release the song, and he wanted a Hollywood movie-style music video for it. So one morning at 2 a.m., the famous director of 80s classic and American Werewolf in London, John Landis, woke up from his sleep to a phone call from Michael Jackson personally. Michael asks John to create a music video for his song, and in his sleepy haze, he says, sure, I'll do it if I can make it into a short film. Michael loved the idea, and they were off. The funding for all of this was precarious. Music videos were still not a priority for the record labels at this point, and they were hesitant to spend a lot of money on the media form. Michael himself had funded the entire budget for Beat It. So when they did the calculations and realized this was going to cost them upwards of $900,000, they had to do some thinking. What they came up with was a making of documentary, a behind-the-scenes look at Thriller that they were able to sell to MTV and Showtime for a combined $550,000. On top of that, the advanced sales of the VHS version of the documentary made a good chunk, and they were able to get another $100K off the record label. Michael covered the costs of anything else that they needed up front, and the recording process began.
I was impressed because you were real nice on the phone. I didn't think you would be nice for some reason, really. I was nice on the phone?
Very nice.
I think it was the connection.
Well, we're trying to bring back the motion picture shorts. And I wanted Thriller and Beat It to be a stimulant for people to make better videos or short films. I saw American Werewolf in London. We really, really liked it because it was a different type of horror movie. It was comedy and horror. That's the way I saw it. And I said, who's the director who did it? And he said, John Landis, John Landis. I said, great, that's who we gotta get. So I said, get in touch with him.
I met Michael and I went to his house and we talked. I gradually became aware that he knew me from American Werewolf and knew nothing else.
I haven't seen any. Well, I saw Kentucky Fried Movie.
Saw Kentucky Fried Movie.
Which was funny.
So it was like real awkward. George said, well, Michael, I mean, have you seen Trading Places? Animal House?
No.
Blues Brothers?
No.
Sort of like real depressing.
Those are your biggest ones,
Real
right?
depressing afternoon at Michael Jackson's house.
The whole deal with this video was the hype. They hyped up the release of this video so hard. It was impossible that it wasn't going to be a hit. Michael himself had this kind of mysterious persona that he was going for at the time. Famous people were showing up on the set to see what was going on. It was the only thing that anybody was talking about. At one point, Michael Jackson's parents showed up on the set as well, and Michael asked that his notoriously abusive father be told to leave, which he initially refused, having to be escorted out of there by the police. At the end of all of it, there was a lot of chaos, and John Landis said that working with Michael Jackson was like working with a gifted 10-year-old child. At the end of the day, they were just kids making a fun monster movie.
When I first walked in Rick's studio, it was like a museum of horror. I mean, all these faces, and I was so amazed by it. There's this one man, it's just his head, and it's split open, and all these organs are gushing out in his brains. It's disgusting, but it's brilliant. I think he's an incredible artist. I don't get tired of doing the same song over and over.
Don't you? Really? Well, the biggest challenge with this film was to be able to get the amount of work that we had to get done in the time that we had. And at one point there's, I think, about 30 different zombies that we created. We had 20 makeup artists all working, putting appliances on zombies and painting them all up. It's the largest makeup crew I've ever had.
Oh, I want one. Wait a minute. I want one. I want one. Action, Mike! Come on, zombies!
Eerie.
Very nice, very good, Johnny. We're good.
Action.
And when you look at yourself in the mirror, you can't help but let the whole mood and the character of it come to life. You can see the way it should walk, the way it should react, the way it should move.
Can you see it now?
When the video was released, it came with a proper Hollywood premiere, attended by some of the biggest names in the industry, including Diana Ross, Eddie Murphy. Michael refused to sit down with the audience because he was dealing with some backlash from his church. Michael was a Jehovah's Witness at this point, and they said they disapproved of the satanic materials in the film and that he would be excommunicated if he released it. So the record label and the production team opted to put a disclaimer at the beginning and call it a day. But the incident really did kind of ruin it all for Michael. Anyways, it was a huge success. They received a standing ovation at the premiere, and they followed it up with a second showing of the short film because Eddie Murphy insisted. They missed the deadline for Halloween, and the video was released in early December 1983, but suddenly everything was zombies and werewolves, and everybody was doing the dance from the video. Thriller blew up, and it set a new standard for music videos as a media form, introducing the idea that they could be art, all their own, a concept which would rule the music industry for the next 20 years. The Thriller album album went back to being #1 on the charts, and the album sales this time would break every record there ever was. And to this day, Thriller continues to be the best-selling album of all time.